All right, ladies, good morning. Hey, it's nice to see everybody this bright and early, and happy Mental Health Awareness Month.
Awesome. What a great day.
I
Good
thought
morning.
that we would talk a little bit about just the things that we have learned as parents raising children with mental health challenges. We kind of live in this world of mental health and mental illness and mental wellness. And sometimes it occurs to me when I'm talking to other people that I know things or have different experiences that other people might not. It's kind of funny, especially because, we live and we talk so much with each other that sometimes it's good to remind ourselves that people on the outside don't know all these common symptoms of ADHD or, depression and stuff. So I thought it would be good for us to kind of talk about what have we learned about mental health, mental wellness that shocked us or something that we would love to go back and tell our past selves so that we could be like, oh yeah.
Oh my goodness, Christina, the list is long. We would be here for an hour or two.
Right?
Hit your high points.
Oh, well, the interesting thing coming from a Latino background,
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a different perspective, and some of the families that I'm dealing with are Hispanic or in the Latino world. And, you know, growing up, now that I know so much more about mental health, mental awareness, acceptance. Wow, I could have used a lot of this a long time ago in our family. And I think the stigma in the Hispanic community with the older generations, was is evident now to me, now that I'm an adult, have come full circle because my whole family could have used, a bunch of stuff. Really. So that's what hit me first, like, wow, my culture had something to do with it too.
I agree with you, Pearl, because I feel like even my mom's generation, it was not
Hmm.
talked about. We didn't deal with any of that. It's kind of like brushed under the rug. We don't talk, we don't do sickness, right? Same thing. We just don't talk about it. And I think that that does a disservice for our families because then they don't feel like they can talk. And so then you kind of are struggling with it in silence. And I feel like what you said, Christine, I think that we're living kind of like in our own little world because we are dealing with it every single day and we talk about it more often that some of our friends have no clue about some of the things that we deal with on a daily basis.
It's funny that you guys started with that because as I was wandering around the house getting ready this morning, I was thinking back to my mom talking about how my uncle, when she was little, her little brother, is just such a wiggly kid, always into everything. And her telling the story about they would go to church every Sunday, and church is long to sit through for little kids. And I guess there would get to a point where my grandfather would pick my uncle up and take him out to the car and give him a spanking. And the one maybe one day where as they're walking out of the church, my uncle's yelling, "No, Daddy, don't take me out to the car and spank me." And it just made me think of all those little kids, and it may still even be happening where people who don't know, who may be a little judgy, I know that they still say things like, that kid just needs a good ass whooping. You
Hmm.
just need to
Oh,
spank them and get them in line. I would never let my kid behave like that. And
yeah.
certainly back in, my mom and my uncle's day, a long time ago, there was no such thing as ADHD. Obviously, we know there was, but there was no name for it yet. And so naming things, I think, really helps. But we don't know. People don't know. And sometimes as you're talking to well-meaning friends and family, they may say something like that to you. And, thinking back myself to things that I have had friends and family say to me, don't give your kid medication because then they'll grow up to use drugs. Something else that is a myth, um, people are just sharing what they think to them maybe makes sense that isn't a fact. And I think in a lot of ways it's very, very harmful, much more harmful than good, much more harmful.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I feel like when people say those things to us, even as family members, I think that makes us kind of not want to talk to anybody about it. I remember, and I think that when my youngest daughter with the ADHD, I remember my mom always saying, I can't imagine what you're going through at home. You know what I mean? She couldn't fathom the things that I was trying to tell her and try to teach. I felt like I was teaching her, but I felt like I also had to keep it to myself because she wasn't understanding. It was hard.
And I've had to tell family members, Levi, my son, has a lot of OCD and some rigid thinking. And, we will go somewhere and his little mind will just start unraveling. And we're used to it and we know how to work it. But even our family, like you said, they just don't know how to handle it. And they think it's a quick fix. And it's just, well, just don't give it to them or whatever. And it's just not that easy.
And thinking
Yeah.
back, I remember my youngest, so I have three, my youngest could not get to sleep. And I got a great routine, a great nighttime routine from my mom, where, the kids would have like snack and then, they'd hang out for a little while. We'd take a nice warm bath. We'd have some like snuggling time. We'd read a book, tuck them in, put on music for them, create that nice relaxing routine.
Mhm.
Did that with all of my kiddos, and with my older two, it worked fine. With my youngest, put them to bed, do all this stuff. 20 minutes later, half an hour later, they'd come out of their bedroom. Can I have a glass of water? I can't sleep, whatever. And so, reading all the books, trying to figure things out, I would pick them up and I looked into it, don't give any kind of reaction, don't talk to them, just scoop them up, no reaction, tuck them back into bed, walk away. We would do this. They would go to bed, I don't know, maybe like say like 8 o'clock. We would do this until 11:30 at night after night after night. And I mean, I would talk to people, I would ask people. No one ever said to me, gee, if a child has ADHD or anxiety or so many other things, they may have a hard time falling asleep. And the things that you might normally do to help create a sleep routine may not work for a child with this type of diagnosis or with this type of challenge. That may be something that you want to talk to a mental health professional about, not even just your family doctor. I had no idea. And I mean, there is no one to talk to, because when you talk to people, they say, oh, why don't you create a bedtime routine? Like, do you honestly think that I took the time to put my other children to bed? And then for the third child, I mean, they're all going to bed kind of at the same time. And for my third child, I'm like, do whatever you want, whatever, run through the house, fall asleep in front of the TV. So, so sometimes there's no one to ask for help. And nothing against professionals. They are great. But to be really honest with you, they are not in our homes night after night doing, trying, you know, problem solving, brainstorming, really struggling with these challenges day in, day out. And so I think that sometimes it really helps when you can have someone, a good friend, someone who knows to talk to. And I think that that's why people connect with us a lot,
Mhm.
because when they go, my kiddo just, I'm stuck letting them fall asleep in front of the TV because they won't even stay in their bed. We can honestly talk to them without judgment, going, that's not my choice either. I get it.
Right.
I get it.
And that's usually how I start one of the conversations with our families is I let them know that um, they're not alone because I've been there. Now, maybe not in their exact situation, but we have been there with children that have mental health concerns. And so I think that puts another perspective where they kind of trust us. Yes, the clinicians that went to school, yes, they're very smart people and they can do certain things, but unless you've lived it, there's just a whole other realm when you when you're walking it every day. You can't just leave at 5 o'clock and go home and deal with it tomorrow. It's there.
Right, right. Yeah.
And I think too, sometimes that what I would like to see is that we talk about mental health and in adulthood, right? We need to normalize that mental health does start younger, and oftentimes they do not get diagnosed until adulthood. And all of that time is we could have been supporting them, and that person could have been getting help all along and not struggling in silence. So I do think that we need to have that more of awareness and acceptance of children's mental health, right? So that when they do get to adults, I know that my oldest is in her 30s, and when she was younger, I didn't know one thing about ADHD, or anxiety. And so I learned, by the time my 17-year-old was 6 and, had that ADHD in school and couldn't sit still, but I could have helped her, when she was younger. But now that she's an adult, we have had that opportunity of learning what is helpful for her as an adult to, manage ADHD and anxiety in
Absolutely.
adulthood.
I am taking a leadership training that was, the state actually wrote a grant for peer support programs to get this specialized training that's lasted over the course of 9 months. And so 22 of us were selected from around the state to get started. And one of the gentlemen in my class is running a peer support program himself. Um, and everyone in the class has some lived experience. And so I represent us as family peer support. But the gentleman in class talks very freely about how he hears voices and how he has heard voices since he was a young child. And I think a lot of people, when you're in a room with someone who says, I hear voices, because of the very, very negative stereotypes around symptoms like that, might be afraid to be in class or in an area with him. And I think what a disservice, TV shows, because those are usually the symptoms that are
Hmm.
used in,
Hmm.
like crime movies and all those things. And he talks very freely about, being in a room by himself and he's trying to work on something and he's got these voices going on and he's really has to actively ignore those voices. But I just think, uh, how might someone who's not aware of a mental illness feel and react to that? Because that is really a symptom that unfortunately we're taught through exposure to all this sensationalist
Hmm.
kind of, TV and stuff and books out there to as a symptom to fear. And
Hmm.
he is a wonderful, wonderful gentleman, very smart, very knowledgeable, and just does a great job as a supervisor, supervising peers, supporting peers in the community. So I think that
That's
that's a
wonderful.
biggie. That would be definitely something that you can if you are a parent listening to this, if you yourself have a mental health challenge, you can live a good life, um, a life of what they call mental health recovery, knowing that this is your symptoms will last through perhaps throughout your life, but you can live well with them and have a plan. So I think that that is
Yeah,
definitely a myth that we would want to bust, some important information to get out there.
absolutely. And I think too, like the like you said, like the TV shows and the movies and what's portrayed, is
Mm-hmm.
what stigmatizes mental health,
Right.
you
You
know,
hear those voices and
unfortunately.
automatically your brain goes to, oh my goodness, he could be schizophrenic and it could go it could go south very quickly. And in reality, that's really not the case. That's just what's portrayed. So, but to go back really quickly to one thing that I think Tracy was saying about her daughter, um, there's a little bit of, I don't want families to feel guilt for them not knowing or recognizing some symptoms because it's hard. And in my situation, knowing now what I know, he's 24 now, but when my son, my oldest, was in sixth grade going through middle school, you're not, when they're babies, you shower them, you help them do things. When they're in middle school, you don't go help them. Usually they just shower on their own. And we went for a haircut one day, and the barber actually said, "Can you come here, please?" And I was like, Okay." He had a bald spot, a massive bald spot, huge on the top of his head. And I never noticed it because he would wear baseball caps. And that's a huge sign of anxiety. He's pulling out his hair. And here I am, a mom, thinking I've got it all together.
Mhm.
So, that was hard. So if you have children, don't feel guilty that you haven't spotted something right away. But if you make your way to us and our website, we're here to help. But yeah, sometimes it just creeps up on you and you don't even realize it.
It is, I think that that is something to really, really hammer home is when you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
So certainly when
Yeah.
when the barber pointed it out to you, as so many parents, you probably like did all the looking that you could. But again, the world, what I think we forget so quickly is that the world evolved so rapidly that 5, 10 years ago, it wasn't as easy to get the information that we can get now.
Mhm.
So now we can learn
Right.
more, but we also have the challenge of knowing if what we are learning and where we're getting our information from is accurate information. So there's always challenges.
Yeah.
You may talk to someone who is a professional who gives you bad advice. When my youngest started having trouble very, very early, we took them to play therapy, and the therapist said, "No, I think that this was just a situational thing. I think it'll be fine moving forward." That was like, they were like 4 years, 3, 4 years old. Huge, huge, huge miss. Huge
Mhm.
miss. We could have started doing interactive parent uh, training when they were, if it was available in the area, when they were really, really young. We could have been doing all sorts of things, but we went to a professional and they made a determination. Now, again, professionals make mistakes too. And I think what's really important to understand is that it takes on average 11 years to get a diagnosis. So if you are a parent and you have some concerns and you have some questions, you're going through it right now, and people keep saying, "No, it's fine. No, you're overreacting. Oh, all kids do that." If in your gut you believe that, I don't, I'm not, this isn't settling right with me, keep looking, keep looking. And as parents, sometimes we get accused of shopping around. Oh, you're shopping around, looking for, like, we don't want to put a label on our children. What we often want to do is just get them help.
Mhm.
So stick with it if you're out there looking.
Yeah, Christina, I think when Bree was younger, we had a family physician. We were new in the area, and a teacher actually told us that she suspected that she had ADHD. And when I went to the primary doctor, he's like, "Yeah, I knew she had it. I was just waiting for you to, come in and kind of ask about it." And I felt so discouraged by that, because I could have prepared her when she went into school, to be able to have that ADHD diagnosis, and I wouldn't have waited so long. And then secondly, I think too, when you are quote unquote shopping around, I think too, we need to also have that, when Brianna was getting like the therapy and stuff like that, it would be like she would go in, she would talk, then we would go home. Well, that didn't include, the parent. Oftentimes you only
In the
have like 5
hallway.
or 10 minutes, right? And so I never knew. Yeah. And so I never even knew that there would be this family base or family, in home kind of thing that would incorporate everybody around the table and really taught those good lessons on how to support, and even as parents, what we can do to support them. So there is a lot to learn as parents, when we get those diagnoses, and just to try to support our
And
children.
Pearl, I wanted to ask you, because I know your son has a physical disability, and maybe because of his specific diagnosis, maybe they know that mental health challenges go along with it. But I'm wondering if a lot of people who have children who have physical disabilities, if their doctors, if their care team ever actually even mentioned to their family, hey, by the way, do you know that maybe this isn't the only challenge that your child will face, but
Right.
maybe they also have a mental health challenge. What was your experience
That's
like?
that's I'm glad you brought that up, because it is so true. The physical piece really kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a really good experience until my son was probably in his mid-teens, that somebody actually said, "Oh, you know that with this disease, he may have a mental health component. There might be something." But it was, I mean, he was diagnosed at 2. So we went 10, 11 years knowing that this kiddo was a little, yes, he had a muscle wasting disease. He has a physical disability, but that was the one that they were like zoning in on. That was the main thing. And of course, that's important, but his mental health is vitally important, and I would, it was not really discussed. That wasn't the important piece. I'm hoping when I help other families in our situation, I always bring that up cautiously. I don't, because having a disability is extremely, it's a tough one too.
Yeah.
Pairing both together, I don't want to overwhelm some families, so we talk about it more now. But wow, yeah, when Levi was first diagnosed, it really wasn't talked about.
And what a what a disservice. I would encourage anyone listening, any child that you have, any human beings on the planet, to consider your mental wellness always in everything that you do, to be aware of what nourishes your brain and makes you feel good, um, and what's uncomfortable for you and kind of brings you down a little bit. And so, as parents, we can model that with our children, especially our young children, to talk about, I've had a sad day or I've had a tough day. I'm going to go give myself a break. We have an emotional support guide, that an emotional support plan, that a tip sheet that people can work on, and it's really just something very simple where you think about, if you find yourself getting stressed out or feeling some kind of way that's uncomfortable and not a feeling that you want to have, plan in advance how you could help yourself calm down, help yourself relieve stress, and then practice that and keep it handy, because we know when we're stressed out and we're having a tough time, that is when our brain is the least creative. And so that's why so often we're trying to be well-meaning to friends, and we say, when they're stressed out or having a tough time, what do you need? And they can't think about what they need because they're really thinking about breathe in, breathe out, keep myself upright, hold it together. They're really in that very, very heightened emotional state. So planning in advance how to handle some of your challenges and kind of head them off a little bit if you feel like you're kind of having a tough time, you're getting stressed out. That it's a great tip. And if you are the loved one of someone who has some mental health challenges, all of us experience anxiety. Suggest, hey, would you like to go for a walk? Hey, would you like to go for a run, take a shower? Let's paint together. Let's cook together. Whatever it may be that you think can kind of help them decompress and relax a little bit.
I think too, kind of just in this month of May, recognizing that mental health, mental wellness is our brain. It's part of our, it's no different than any medical diagnosis. And I think that there's more acceptance when it's like a medical, why would mental health and not be widely accepted? And I think that, we just need to normalize mental wellness a little bit better, talk about it and accept that this is part of us as humans. It's not just our brain is part of us. So why are we stigmatizing that autonomy instead of all of these other
and depression, like for example, depression is a biological illness, so why would we not? We're taking care of everything from here down, and we're not everything. This is controlling everything. So why not take care of that?
Right.
And there's biological factors that go along with mental health challenges. So it is really important to see a doctor and look at some of if we ignore our mental health, it is likely to cause some physical challenges.
Yeah.
So by all means, talk to your doctor, see a psychiatrist if you can find one, talk to a therapist. There's really nothing nothing wrong with that. And if a doctor makes you feel like there is something wrong, gee, I have depression, I would like to kind of keep an eye on my heart health, and a doctor isn't up to speed on that, then maybe look and see if you can find another doctor. Find one that accepts your mental health as a whole body kind of challenge.
Yeah.
Ladies, do you have any parting words for us for the month of May overall?
Well, I would just say, take care of yourselves. Know that this month is all about, ourselves, our minds, our whole body. Take care of yourself and ask for help. We're here if you need us, not just in May. We're here all year long.
And for me, I think that it's also that acceptance. We, need to talk about mental health widely and educate, and we need to have a little bit more acceptance with that diagnosis. Take care of yourself, and we're always here, like Pearl said. As a parent, you're not alone.
My parting words for everyone would be to be thoughtful about the language that you use. And be careful in calling things like, oh, this weather is so bipolar, or because you're having a moment where you've forgotten a few things, I'm so ADHD. There are people out there who hear that and may kind of think that you're not someone who is okay to talk to about any mental health challenges that they may have. So be thoughtful about not diagnosing people and not using diagnoses as just band-aids for things that typically happen throughout the day. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We will be back next week. We would love to hear in the comments wherever you're listening to this podcast. Let us know, what is your favorite mental wellness tip for everyone? Let's gather up those tips and we'll share them with everyone. But thanks for listening. And ladies, thanks so much for your time. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too.
You too.